Welcome to the Obesity Medicine Podcast with your host, Dr. Rentea, board certified in internal medicine and obesity medicine. Here, we talk about a path to metabolic health, and we have real conversations about chronic weight management and living a full life. Just a reminder, I am a physician, but I'm not your physician. So everything that's on this podcast is for informational purposes, but please go talk to your doctor about what's right for you. There is no medical advice being given on this podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today, I have a really fun interview with one of my best friends and my business coach, Amanda Sabicer. And the reason I brought her on, initially, the reason we got on was to talk about how to give and receive feedback. This is actually a really big tool as far as when you go to the physician and you get that stigma and bias thrown at you, and you get these comments that are just outrageous, and you end up going home and you feel so bad about yourself. And so we really talk about how to discern what's being said to you versus what you take in. So I think this is something that I've been asked a lot for. So I would definitely listen for that. We have it time-stamped down in the show notes if you want to hop specifically to that. But then we really take a big jump into talking about medical advocacy. Amanda is amazing and shares her story of going through lung cancer at an early age, having to fight for that diagnosis, and now here recently after COVID, what she went through. And a lot of what she has gone through, I see a lot of parallels with what I see a lot of my patients face. And I think that this is just a really nice conversation between friends where you can hear what she's gone through. We're going to pull it into some practical ways that you can help to support yourself. Something that Amanda talks about that I think is just gold is how can you actually redefine what it means to be a quote unquote good patient? I think we have so many expectations of what it looks like when we have this authority figure of a doctor in front of us. But something I talk about endlessly with my patients is that I want you to be the authority on yourself. So you might have other people around you that have a little bit of expertise and you hear what they say, or you read books, or you're on social, but at the end of the day, you decide what you are going to do. So if you want to hear a conversation that really goes into a lot of areas but has a lot of practical application, this is definitely the one for you. I also always want to encourage you, if you're loving this podcast, please make sure to review it wherever you are listening. I'm so excited today that we have on the podcast Amanda Sabicer. She is a non-for-profit executive and she's a life and business coach for women trying to do big things. Amanda, can I just start out here? Because I will have already in the introduction said how many years I've known you, said the impact you've had on me, but can you just tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do before we have this amazing conversation?
Yes. Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Rentea. Thank you. So yes, Amanda Sabicer. I've been in the nonprofit sector as an executive for over 20 years. And about 5 years ago, I realized that I was hitting burnout. And that's what led me to discovering life coaching. And since then, I feel like everybody needs this. My life is so much better because I know how to manage my mind. Because of that, I started a side business doing life and business coaching for women who, like me, want to do big things, but also want to have a family life and some balance.
So I found you years ago. We actually did an advanced certification together, as I've grown many of my friends in this way. And we've stayed in touch since. And I work with you, right? I'm pretty open about this publicly that you're my coach. And you've really helped me to grow the clinic and helped me to manage my mindset. And here's the reason I brought you on, because you have a very unique way of describing feedback. And we recently had this really amazing conversation where we looked at how this applies to weight loss and health changes, things like that. And I was someone actually, if you remember this, which I think you do, I actually hated the concept of feedback. So for everyone else that's listening, Amanda's laughing, but I was in this group program that Amanda had a while back. And one of the weeks was feedback week. And afterward, I got on Marco Polo and I said to Amanda, low key, I super hated that session. This was really annoying. And shocker, later, that has been the biggest impact in my life, is knowing from employees how to handle feedback, knowing how to give feedback with myself. So can we start out with just even describing what is feedback as a tool and when can it be used?
Yes, it is. So I love hearing that story. Listen, I had the same thing when I first started with it. I think it's human we're not really like our society doesn't really truly embrace feedback. We talk about it in terms of criticism, it becomes very personal. So when I did a deep dive into feedback when I was preparing for that course, what was so eye-opening to me is that feedback suddenly became this secret tool that I never understood the role it could play in helping me unlock my greatness. And here's the reason why is, and this is just sort of my definition of greatness, is that when we can let our insides come on the outside, right? Our we embrace who we are on the inside and we let other people see it and we let ourselves shine. And until we can embrace feedback, there's always a piece of us that's hiding, and we're either hiding from others or we're hiding from ourselves. So
Yeah.
the key piece with feedback is it's actually two parts. There's the feedback you're getting externally, which is other people's observations of you, and you have a chance to absorb them and then sort of gut check. Does that resonate? Does that not? But there's also internal feedback that's happening as well. Things that you're thinking about. If you're allowing yourself to see yourself, you get to know yourself better. And it's just an amazing tool for growth.
Yeah, the first thing that I thought about when you described it in this way is how often, I'm always going to bring it to weight loss because it's just what I help a lot of people with. I think about how often is it that you go into a doctor's office and they put their thoughts and opinions on you, and then you kind of take it in this shame way, or maybe I'm just speaking my own story here, but you don't sit there and say, okay, that, like what you just said, it's like, okay, that was external, that came in. But now what do I think and believe? What feedback am I going to give to myself? What am I going to say is true or not? There's like that second part that's not happening for people because I think that excuse my language, it kind of feels like a shit experience to get feedback a lot of the time.
Totally. And, so just to tap into my day job, I work at a nonprofit that's the intersection of climate and small business. So I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who are looking to get VC funding or angel funding. And especially with the women or folks from underrepresented communities, when I coach them on standing up in front of an audience of investors, how do I put this politely? Investors with big pocketbooks tend to have lots of opinions about what you should be doing, but they're not the ones in the arena. They're not the ones who are doing the work. And so I coach my entrepreneurs on part of your job is to receive the feedback and then sift through it and keep the stuff that resonates and dump the rest, because you're going to get very conflicting feedback. And so that's actually an executive skill set that they need to cultivate on their path towards raising money. And I think it 100% is parallel to our health journeys. And I know you and I've been transparent with you as well about my own health journey, which is probably one of the reasons why, we're here today, is that feedback is not only just, in the business sector, in the workplace, but really in our private lives and health too.
Yeah. This, what you just said, keep what resonates and dump the rest. I say this all the time. I'll say a statement like, if this applies to you, listen, if not, plug your ears. Like, you don't need to take in everything that you hear. And especially in this health arena, how many doctors are there where one's like the gut microbiome's the only thing? And then the other one's like, only the med. And the other one's like, no, it's cognitive behavior. Like, everyone has like this like massive stake in the ground. This is the only way. So what's the truth then? I don't know. It's somewhere in the middle, right? It's somewhere in there. And I think we can try to be more rooted in evidence-based things, but it's like at the end of the day, things need to resonate and land. So here's my question. How can people start to build this out? And maybe we can stick more in like getting medical feedback. So again, what sticks out so strongly to me is you go into the doctor, they say, and again, it's another conversation, but they say, well, your weight's up and I need you to lose weight, and you feel the slap in the face. I mean, how can people start to work on creating that feedback with themselves, more that internal part going forward?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that come to mind. So one is, before you even go into the doctor, my guess is, if your weight's up or not. Like, this is not actually a surprise because you're observing yourself, you're living your life. You know that you had an extra piece of cake, or that you've been working hard and stuff isn't just falling off and you need help. Like, you're going there for help. So when somebody, when a physician is talking to you about it, there can be a sting, but some prep time ahead to be like, they're probably going to say this, and it's not going to be it doesn't need to be a surprise to me, is a first step in helping reduce some of the stress of the experience. And again, that does tie into the feedback because you're having an honest conversation with yourself. You're like, I'm going to observe that I haven't lost the weight that I anticipated. I mean, for sure, I've been in the situation too. The second piece is I like to remind myself that doctors are humans too. And you know this, Matea, that I used to sell biotech oncology drugs. So I would go behind the scenes and work with all these physicians who are doing amazing things and saving people's lives. And here they are giving treatment, life-saving treatment to people, and have like a voracious tab. Tab is like a Coca-Cola. It's like a soft drink that nobody drinks anymore, except this one physician I used to call on. So I used to be like, I'll bring Tab. I had to like go to 12 stores to find it, and I would call on him. And, having sodas and stuff when you're sitting there, like trying to save people's lives, like we are all complex people. And so when somebody's speaking to you with a physician hat on, you have to look at them and say, they know a lot about this topic, but they're also human and they have their own bias and their own story going on. And when you start seeing the physicians not just as pure authorities, listen, especially as women, we're trained to see, we're trained to be good girls, right? And like listen to authority. And so that's where looking at them as people helps reduce some of that automatic people pleasing that happens where you want to agree to be a good patient. And so I would encourage people to redefine what it means to be a good patient.
Oh, mic drop moment. Like, oh gosh, let's just marinate on this for a second. So first of all, part one here, how you're saying that, don't let this be a surprise to yourself. Spend some time going into it, because often people tell me this, like they know what they're going to say, but yet they're still disappointed when they hear this, the thing that they know they're going to hear, right? Just having this honest conversation with yourself first. I think that's so super helpful. But I love this part too, with the doctors being human. They have their own bias, not taking that they're the be all end all authority. I don't know that it's necessarily the best approach to ever have someone be more of an authority than you are for yourself.
That is the mic drop moment. Seriously.
But like, when did you, because I think we've both gotten to that, because I think so years ago version of me, and again, I want to like highlight, if people are listening, I feel often with any type of disease management, you think, well, they've got to know more than me, because if I don't have true mastery over it, how can I have an opinion, right? But at the end of the day, a lot of these things that are chronic health things, we don't have all the answers. So we're doing the best we can with what we know, and we're trying to put our bias aside, and we're trying to do all those things. But at the end of the day, I don't know that there even are all the answers that people are looking for. But how did you start to develop that? Because I got to this place where I was like, oh, there's always new studies. There's always new things. I might not know best. They might know more, telling me about their body. I got to this gray zone place that I hadn't been before, but it took me a while to get there. What about with you when you realize, oh, this person might not be like the top pinnacle?
I would say two things helped me get to that conclusion. One was I mentioned that I worked at a biotech company selling oncology drugs. And as I learned how to read the research and I got really into the science of it, I started realizing that the science that I was reading today was based on disproving the science before. So I was like, wait a minute. So the truth that I'm selling now is based on telling everybody that what we were doing before was a lie. So what is the real truth? Because I think 5 years from now, this is going to be a lie, right? So that was like my first crack, like in the seam, the veneer of what truth is.
And you do know that's a thing, right? Like when we graduate medical school, I know they told us like in 5 years, 50% of what you learned will be garbage. And I'm sure it's even quicker nowadays, because that was back in the day. And now, I mean, research is just like exponential. You can hardly keep on top of your field.
Totally. It's like Moore's law, but for research, right? It's like half of the time. The second thing is I just had personal experience with it. I really had to wrestle with it. And that's where, again, speaking as a woman, I ran into sort of good girl syndrome, I guess you could say, where I wanted to sort of people please when I was at the physician's office. And I had two health issues that really shaped my relationship with myself and with my health and with physicians or the healthcare industry in general. One was I had a lung carcinoid when I was 29, and getting diagnosed for that was honestly traumatic. I went to a pulmonologist complaining of coughing up blood, and he sort of like phased over it. Like he just sort of skimmed over it and ordered me a inhaler, a long lasting inhaler, and then a short, albuterol. And then I don't remember what the other drug was. It's probably off the market by now. But and I had to really advocate for myself and say, no, I want you to go in there. I want a bronchoscopy. I had to look up the word bronchoscopy. And he went in and he found my tumor. And thank God he did, because I had surgery. I didn't have to do anything else, no chemo or anything, luckily. So very, very blessed. I'm missing part of my lung, but okay, fine. But that was really super, super traumatic. And every time I had to go for a follow-up with my surgeon, I would cry before. I would try not to cry during, but I would sometimes cry during. I'd be trembling and I would cry afterwards. And it was just my trauma response. I mean, I get teary thinking about it. It was awful. Mm-hmm. And then flash forward, eventually I work through that, and now I can go see him without crying, and I see him for all of his humanness. I'll put it that way. But most recently I had COVID back in December 2020, and it just did me for something in my body that somehow resulted in me ending up with all these weird symptoms. I'm sure people have lots of stories about this, but my particular version was I ended up having low oxygen while I was sleeping, and low oxygen when I was walking around, like really low, like in the 60s or 70s, like getting up to go to the kitchen, heart rate all over the place. So something was really off. And it took me, almost probably 15 months to actually get diagnosed from when it started. And that journey was, and my symptoms got worse and worse to the point where I wasn't able to walk on the treadmill at more than 2.0 speed. And I had to have a pulse oximeter on so I could know when to pause, and I would get dizzy. And it was just really, really bad. My life shrunk. When you're not feeling well, your life just gets much smaller. And so figuring out how to handle that and that whole experience was really one of my biggest challenges in my life, honestly. And so going through that experience and seeing lots of physicians and lots of different types of healers, because I got really open with who I was going to talk to, I didn't care, helped me kind of even more get over this hump of the fear and the relationship with the healthcare system, because I just went to so many. It's like dating, I had to kiss a lot of frogs.
But I remember you talking about, I'm just going to get the different opinion and I'm going to see what they say. And you weren't up or down depending on what one specialist said. You were just very constant in gathering who was saying what, and eventually everything fit together to make sense. But you kind of had to advocate for yourself. It's the same thing in the weight space where, unfortunately, we know this, right? Where everyone blames it on weight and then they don't get the workups, and we miss tremendous amounts of things because no one does the normal workup that you would do with anyone else in a smaller body. They just say, oh, it's your weight, go lose weight. And we miss heart failure and masses. And I mean, I could go on and on. It's the same thing here where, again, if it's a little bit more nebulous, if it's not 100% obvious, there comes in that human aspect of the doctor and having to work through that of like, I'm not going to let their answer mean that it's a no for me. I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly it. It was, and listen, in my case, it was a bias where I'm in my mid 40s. When this started, I was at a totally normal, healthy weight. I have since gained weight because of what's been going on and the challenges. So I'm working on dropping that now. But on the outside, I looked totally healthy, and they were very confused. And they did the first round of tests, and everything came out fine. And there was a little bit of like, you're making this up. I mean, I even did the 6-minute walk test that you're supposed to do, and I passed with flying colors. And I cried in the car in the parking lot because I knew that they wouldn't believe me.
Yeah.
I'm getting teary, but it was so hard. I had to advocate for myself at a whole new level.
It's the medical gaslighting, right? Where people are not believed. And what's interesting is not everything's the obvious diagnosis, right? So that first sick, I'm just, because I know medically, the workup that was done, like that first test with it not being positive, in a 100% normal scenario, that would have been low. But it didn't mean that all the other things weren't true in the future, right? Like we don't need to get into all that, but it's this gaslighting of like, I don't believe you. In a weight context, it's usually, well, come in and show me your food diary because I don't believe you, right? It's like, no, you have to be overeating for the weight to not come down, for this to not be effective, what I'm telling you, because it's not believing that there could be something else going on with someone.
Right, exactly. And they're just not experiencing what you're experiencing. And so there's, it's really, you have to be, and this goes back to the feedback, listening to yourself. My body was talking to me. It kept tapping at the door saying, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. Keep going. And I think you'll remember there was this point I hit frustration. So it was January of 2022. I was really at my lowest, where the symptoms were just egregious to me at that point. I was not leaving my house really because it was too exhausting. I was like exhausted, changing the sheets on my bed. It was like really bad. And I remember, I think you and I had a conversation and I was like, I decided the highest, I was like, I'm going to pick the most ridiculous number. I'm going to spend $10,000 this year to fix this problem. That's my commitment to myself. And it's not like I had $10,000 lying around, by the way.
No, but I remember this moment. I don't want to interrupt you, but like, I just keep going because I have so many thoughts on this.
It was like, I can't take this anymore. This is, there's got to be a better way. That was the moment. There's got to be a better way. I cannot do the rest of my life. I have 3 kids and a husband and a job. I was like, I don't even know if I can keep working. I wasn't able to go into the office. I mean, there's all this. It was like, this is not tenable. And by committing, it's a funny thing, but by committing that enormous amount of money, it gave me permission to try everything.
Yeah.
And I made a list and I dug around the internet and I found studies, like obscure studies. If you look at, by the way, I've gotten like good at looking at the research now. If you go on was it NIH has the list of all the clinical trials. I looked at clinical trials in the US. I looked at clinical trials abroad. I was like, what are they studying? What are they testing? And I got myself in a clinical trial that was local. That was a vagus nerve stimulation trial. And it was like, I mean, I did that. I did magnets. I did energy, waving my arms around, acupuncture. So I did all sorts of modalities. Blood. I had like blood, what do you call it? Infusions, like IVs with like vitamins and stuff. Plus I was doing all the sort of traditional, like quote unquote traditional stuff. And it was just, I turned myself into a guinea pig. And a good friend of mine said, well, how are you going to know what works if you're trying everything all at once? And I leaned over to her and I said, I don't care. I'll feel better.
And it's like, look at this moment though, right? Where you just reach this point where, and I know you're telling your story and I keep bringing it back to weight, but because I think it's the same thing that happens, which is like, people get to this place where they feel so bad. They're so tired. They're so exhausted. They have so much joint pain. There's so many things that aren't working. And they're like, I've had enough. And they keep getting the same like auto responses. Like every 6 months or year when they go to the doctor, it's like, eat less and move more. And it's like again and again. And then people have that same moment too, where they're like, okay, I will pay to see a different specialist. I will do the coaching program. Like they're like, whatever it takes. This was me too. I was like, I just want different answers. I paid a ridiculous amount, which was worth it. Okay. But paid a ridiculous amount to be part of some of these communities because I was like, I need to know different tools. Do you know a method I don't know? I was open to any of it. And then I was able to navigate my way more to what felt right for me. But sometimes the conventional stuff isn't going to work. And so you need to look at other things or get a different, when I say conventional, like, sort of Western medicine, you need to get another opinion. And that takes energy and time and determination to have your own back during that process.
Oh, yes, it really does. And it was a discipline. I was like very laser focused on it. It was all encompassing. I mean, you'll remember I was doing less outreach and coaching and like working less because I just didn't have the energy or the time. So it was definitely a commitment. But to me, it was like $10,000 plus however many hundreds of hours I spent going to see people and researching stuff versus, the rest of my life feeling this way. Yeah. And my body was clearly telling me, you need to take action. Please take action in its very subtle way. But the body speaks subtly. And so, it's on us to pay attention to the signals, kind of going back to feedback. So
that feedback, I like that. Just the body speaking to us and we have to listen. And maybe we haven't been crazy the whole time and no one has ever addressed it and we've never gotten closure and resolution and we need more of that help and that's okay. And to listen to that and stop ignoring it, like, well, it's just the way it is. Because it doesn't stop, right? Like, that's the problem is like this little voice, I call it the whisper in the wind. Like, it doesn't stop giving you the message. You stop listening. And so a lot of the times, the way I see that play out with weight is you're overeating to try to feel better because you feel so crummy. It's like, well, let me at least do something that I know 100% will make me feel better. And you do get a dopamine hit when you eat really ultra processed food. And so that's why when people put themselves down when they're doing that, I'm just sitting there thinking, but that's the way you're taking care of yourself. That's the way you know how right now. No one else, you haven't seen another tool. You don't know another way. Everyone's slamming the door in your face. So just having a lot of compassion for that. I feel like this conversation has gone in a different direction, but it's like, it is all about feedback, listening to yourself, not taking it gospel, what someone else is saying, and just deciding for yourself what you're going to do.
Yeah. And actually this is bringing up kind of the sort of final phase of which I'm in right now, which is I finally got a diagnosis and a few months later started medication. And what's interesting is when you've had, to me, this was a traumatic process. It was very abrupt start. It was very scary, had my oxygen drop. I did not feel well. What I realized after I got my diagnosis and they were like, okay, here's what you need. You need to start exercising some more gently. Start, beginning to exercise. That's super important for you. And here's some medication to take. Well, it takes a while for the medication to kick in. And so as I started exercising, because I felt like I actually had permission, what's interesting is after so many months of starting to walk and feeling the lightheadedness come and my oxygen drop, my brain had trained itself to stop and to kind of hit the panic button and the stop button. And now that I wanted to exercise and I knew it was safer for me intellectually, I really had a hurdle around changing my behavior and my thoughts about exercise. And so that was interesting because here I was, the feedback loop that had saved me, literally saved my life because I was listening to it, even when everyone else was like, you should be fine, you should be fine. I now had the tools to address those issues, but my brain was still hyper vigilant around the symptoms that I was experiencing. So it kept hitting the alarm button, even when I was like, I've got it, guys. We're taking medication now. Things are going to be okay. And so that's where, because we're human and we have a human brain, and it's really based on patterns and habits, I had to do a lot of work on deconditioning that trauma response pattern, which I know you and I have talked about before, but it's a slow process. And I think it 100% applies to weight loss as well, when you're trying to change your relationships with food and exercise. Yeah.
All of it, right? The way you're thinking and feeling about food. The other thing is too, maybe weight's coming off, but you're still scared to go to the amusement park because you didn't fit before. Wow, that's a really scary experience, right? Or you don't know that you can walk around for a longer period of time because now it's easier with the weight being down. It's like a new land that needs to be very gently explored. Just TMI moment, but I worked with a few years ago here, the coach Judith Gatan. She's a style and confidence coach, but it really was like, okay, I don't want to look frumpy dumpy all the time. But here's the thing that shocked me, Amanda. Okay. The thought of trying on a bunch of clothes, I don't know what nerve we were tapping, but I was bawling my eyes out in the beginning. And I realized, wow, like what is happening here that me just trying on some new clothes, like it was so overly emotional when I thought, well, all we're doing is just changing the wardrobe. Like, I don't know if she's ever going to hear this, but she knows all her clients do this. I'm not unique. But I just sat there and I realized, oh, because you're tapping on this belief when you grew up. I was a child with obesity. They didn't make clothes in my size. We would have to go to the adult department store. There'd be one pair of pants, right? So it's like my mind goes to nothing's going to work. I've also clothes always in the past had to hurt to look okay. Like I had all this stuff wrapped up in it. And it's like the world wasn't the same anymore where I was at right now, but I'm still carrying all that. And it like took that moment to unpack all of that. So it was like the feedback of like, she had to like start with me to be like, clothes don't need to hurt to look good. And I was like, what? Because I remember going on dates when I was younger and like putting on jeans so that I thought I looked better and hurting a lot. It was this horrible process. And anyway, to kind of come back to the plot, like realizing there's just always going to be feedback of like renegotiating where you are now. And life is different, but you might be still in the old thinking from who you were however many months ago, the past traumas. And we're using the word trauma loosely here. Like, please, see a mental health therapist. If we call it big T trauma, like, big events, but small events can be just as triggering, whether clothes didn't fit, things like that. That can still leave a really big impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this version of trauma that we're talking about is more like when your emotions are trapped in your body, right? You have a loop in your head. And so you're kind of, a situation will re-trigger that thinking and you end up sort of re-experiencing those emotions. And so for me, it was the deep fear with walking. For you is the sadness of your experiences with trying on clothes when you were younger.
Yeah.
So I think what's interesting around, because I'm a coach, I could start seeing my brain do this, and the fear I was creating. And my husband, I mean, God bless that man for putting up with me. My husband knew I needed to exercise more. And so he was trying to be encouraging. And he said, well, let's go take a walk. I'll walk with you. Now, my brain was like, heck no, I don't want to walk with you. I need to be by myself so I can be busy thinking about all my symptoms. It's very distracting because you're a chatty Cathy. There's a small voice in me that's like, he's right, you should go. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll go. But I turned to him and I said, listen, I'll walk with you, but I don't want you talking to me too much. I don't want you expecting me to say anything. And when I say it's time to turn around, we're turning around. Like, this is how scared I was of actually exercising, taking a walk around literally a walk outside around the block was that frightening for me because I had so many experiences over that year. And what I realized during that first walk was that I needed to be in control of this exercise ramp up. And the way I needed to be in control of it was not necessarily whether my husband was walking with me or not, but defining what progress looked like and defining what success looked like. And old Amanda, pre all this stuff, would have said, well, a good walk is, how long you walk or how fast you walk or how far away, you walk. And I realized all of those metrics were going to shoot me in the foot with this scenario. So I realized I needed to redefine success for me in this case and landed with, the biggest hurdle this whole process is that I'm afraid of walking. I'm afraid of the exercise. Yeah. So what does progress look like? It's the length of time that I can think positively or at least neutrally about exercising.
Yeah.
So this was, I guess, last fall, right? When I was beginning to realize I had to exercise more. So we did a couple of walks where I would start the walk, forcing my brain to stay in a neutral or somewhat positive state, really, really focusing on that, not letting my thoughts go run wild. And my husband would be chatting and I couldn't even talk to him because I was so focused on just noticing the grass, just noticing the trees, like really trying to stay neutral. And then the moment my brain went to, I think I'm getting dizzy, I think something's wrong, boom, that was the moment I would look at my husband and say, it's time to turn around. And he was like, okay, this was random. Can we make it to the end of the block? And I was like, no, we can't. We have to turn around right now. And what I didn't realize, okay, and by the way, I had to walk back. So it's not like I stopped walking, right? But it's so funny how the mind works. What my mind needed to hear me say was, we're done with this now. You can rest. Like you're going to be okay. You're going back to safety. And by doing that, I was training my brain to associate exercise with something positive. And that was the key for me.
Yeah. I love that. I'm hearing your story. And of course, I'm thinking of an analogy for myself, as we do as humans. And I think about when I started to work with a different food relationship, it was really hard for me because I would, just and then overeat and then the things I'm not planning and, just again and again. And for me, part of the win had to be like, oh, I ate more protein. Like, congratulations, you did that. And that's what you're talking about, right? Like the starting to look at some positives, because like you said, our brain is very negative and then it just loops on the same things. And so building out, I like how you said redefining success, because I think too, in a weight management capacity, everyone thinks it's getting to a certain weight. And that's never the goal. That's never the freaking goal. Like the goal is that you can do the activities you want to do. You maybe are more confident, all those things. It's actually very divorced of the scale and a number. And so getting really clear on like, what is it that I actually would want to do? Like, do I want to be able to do a 30-minute walk at night and not be huffing and puffing? Like, is that the goal? But like getting really clear on that. And then you're able to do what you were talking about, which is then say, and how can I do that in a way that actually resonates with me where I can keep going? And usually focusing on the things you want versus what you don't want is usually a lot more powerful. So I have found for people like, can you write out the things that you want to achieve? And then let's go toward that and stop being like, here's what I don't want to do. Like, do you ever see that with clients and they're like, these are all the things I don't want to do? And then it's like freaking magnetic that that's going to happen, right? You just attracted it in. That's all you can articulate.
Totally, totally. And it's sort of, I mean, again, it kind of loops back to that internal external dynamic that we were talking about earlier with feedback, is that, all of the metrics that I was using to measure my exercise progress were really external. And what I was doing was creating a new internal locus of measurement, which was my own mind. Like I couldn't point to it externally with anybody, be like, look at what my brain did right now. Like it's really my own internal experience. And I think it's the same thing with weight management, like you were saying. The funny thing about a scale, right? We sort of lean towards a scale because somebody else can observe that. But if you and I both know we put that scale on the moon, the number would be different. So are you going to like yourself better? Like now I'm successful because there's less gravity, like it's kind of ridiculous. And so when we poke holes a bit at some of those external metrics for success, it makes it a little bit looser. We don't have to hold so tightly to them and put our worth on them. None of that stuff. It's just bogus. It's not important. It's really much more the internal experience that matters.
Totally. I think that's a perfect ending place because I think there are so many things that we've said here. Don't let these conversations be a surprise to you. Realize that everyone's kind of human around you. Redefine success for yourself. So honestly, I want everyone to hear when they're hearing all these things. It was a very deep conversation today. We went into areas that you might have never explored before. And so everybody be gentle on yourselves. If you take any part of what we talked about today and you internalize, how could I apply this? What could I do? This is work that I think me and you have been doing for years now. So we didn't kind of pop out of the other end, like, I'm going to be more positive and I'm going to redefine it. And I'm going to see for myself what I want the feedback to be. I mean, hear me say in the beginning when Amanda brought this up not too long ago, I forget if it was a year or two ago at this point, I didn't like the concept of feedback. It was annoying. And now, literally pretty much weekly, I tell her, I'm so glad. Can I give an example, Amanda? Because I haven't talked about this recently. So I got more active on social, right? You know this months ago, I don't know, the past year. And sometimes people say comments that I think are so off the wall. And I don't react to them anymore because I think that's really not the person that I'm helping. I'm so focused on what my values are and what my goals are. And I think before that might have shut me down. And nowadays, I don't know that there's anything that you could say on social that I haven't either thought of myself, that I haven't worked through, that would be a surprise to me. That feedback I've locked down. And I think it's because of some of the tools that you've helped me with.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. And you know what? I think it's the same thing. That's what I was practicing this last year with physicians. I went to dozens of them and I would go to a doctor's office and I started being like, you have to be worthy of me as your patient.
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh, I love that.
Because I'm an amazing patient. Like I come in prepared. Sometimes I bring my husband in to be my advocate. He observes other things. Like I take my appointments seriously because I got shit to do in my life. Excuse my language, but I have stuff I want to get done and I have a life I want to create. And either you're going to co-create this with me or you're out and I'm moving on to somebody else. And it takes a while to find those people. So I really encourage, for your listeners, really think about who is able to help you co-create the life you want, whether it's a physician. But I just went to I got massage for the first time in forever. I was like, I need to add this guy to my list. I mean, I feel like a new woman right now, right? It takes like a village to raise a kid, but it also takes a village to keep us healthy and on track. So that would be my last parting thought for your group is you are really empowered to select who's on your team.
I love that. Co-creating the experience with you. And I love this power thought that you just said of like, I'm the most amazing patient. Like basically, if this doctor isn't really excited to help me out and to take care of me, wrong doctor for you. Because I don't know that there's any patient that I don't have where I'm so excited about what they're going through, how I can help them next. I'm noodling on it 24/7. I just love it. And so if you have someone that doesn't have that passion for helping you, find someone else because there is someone else out there, right? That to just experience that level. Okay, this has been an amazing conversation. Let me end with, can you tell people a little bit about maybe where they can find out more about you?
Yes, at this point, I'm pretty much on LinkedIn. As you know, I've been focusing a lot of my work. It turns out the environment needs a lot of help. So I'm very focused on that right now. And I'm doing referral only coaching. So the best way to find me is to look at my LinkedIn, and you can read about my experience a little bit and get to know me there.
Yeah, I love that. All right. Well, I'll make sure to have that in the show notes. Thank you. That marks the end of today's episode. But if you're newer to the podcast, I want to tell you about something that we have, and it's a free podcast roadmap. So this is perfect for any of you that are listening where you want to be directed to very specific episodes. So let's say that you are just starting out and you want to know, what should I do right when I start on the medications? Or you're experiencing certain side effects on the GLP-1s, or you want to know what to do if you're in a plateau, or if emotional eating is taking over, or if hunger levels are high. So we have many different categories of episodes that we've talked about because there's a lot at this point. So if you want to be able to navigate that very easily, we have it broken down by category and also the episodes that are there, and we hyperlink to everything. So you can just click on it and find the episode, easy peasy. If you want that, you can go to renteaclinic.com/podcast roadmap. We'll have it linked right here underneath the show notes where you're listening. And you can go ahead and get that free resource so that it makes it easy for you to navigate, because I know that it's really hard when someone has an established podcast. I am such a podcast fiend. I'm listening to podcasts all day long. And when I find one that I love, but there's a lot that are out there, I am so lost. So I hope that you enjoy this free podcast roadmap. Again, the link to get to that is going to be renteaclinic.com/podcast roadmap. I hope this is helpful, and let me know if you have any questions.